Good morning to you, Mr. Ali Hindi. Welcome to the Nuzuri Kahawa report. We're extremely excited to have you and to start discussing about the Houthis, also Russian naval ambitions in the Red Sea, the possible recognition of Somaliland, and uh, and also the presence of middle powers in the Horn of Africa, but also the possibility of conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia over Ethiopia's claim over Ethiopia's sovereignty and territorial lands. But before we begin on the segment, please introduce yourself, Mr. Hindi, to our audience. Where you from? Where are you currently reside? And what have you been doing in the past? I'm very familiar with you, but also just for the audience to get familiarity with you, Mr. Hindi.
Okay, thank you very much for hosting me and greeting to you and your audience. My name is Ali Hindi, originally from Eritrea, grew up between Addis Ababa and Saudi Arabia, then the UK. I have been politically active in the Eritrean opposition side. Since 2009, I have become a guest in Arabic TVs, analyzing for the Horn of Africa and sometimes generally in Africa as well, in general. I have linked with so many Arabic TVs in the years. Then I became head of the African study unit in a think tank group called the Progress Center for Policy, where I supervised and coordinated a project for the Horn of Africa, the Economical Confederation of the Horn of Africa. I have published research papers and policy papers on the subject of Horn of Africa's conflict, the Red Sea, and the internal, the reconciliation process in Somalia. And in Somaliland, Somalia, and also the conflict in Chad. So I've been active in these areas in the most Horn of Africa and Sub-Saharas, and the greater Horn of Africa as they wish to call it. So this is me really.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Mr. Hindi. The Horn of Africa is going through tremendous change at this particular moment. You have the possibility of Somaliland being recognized as an independent sovereign state and has been stable and democratic for almost 3 decades. And you have Sudan that is becoming Libya 2.0, and Somalia has been a failed state, and there's a possibility of renewed conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. But before we go to that segue, I guess we're going to go to the global maritime security. I guess the question in mind to our audience is the prevalence of the Houthis. So to what extent are the Houthis maritime attacks an independent strategic choice versus a projection of Iranian regional ambitions in the Red Sea?
If we go back to the importance of the Red Sea, historically, of course, after the opening of the Suez Canal, the Red Sea gained its strategical importance from there, and there was a new chapter in the Red Sea. But then, after the First World War, the Red Sea has become the important maritime passage because of the need for oil, crude and energy, and the fact that the First World War, post the First World War, the world was managed by, or let's say, dominated and controlled by the need for energy. All development was dependent on that, and the maritime path was the main passage, or the main responsible for securing delivery and logistics of this commodity. But after the Second World War, when the new world order was shaped, the Cold War came. The Red Sea, to some extent, was not confront areas as much as it was a contested areas, and parties like the Soviet at that time and the American, despite having differences on their trying to allocate, the positioning themselves in that region, they have not. They've all, let's say, adhered to some kind of some kind of rules, or some kind of engagement whereby maritime passages were not affected. Conflicts were not escalated to the extent of being a bit of being of major implication on the maritime, on the flowing of the ships in that region. That goes back. For now, an example I can give you is the Somalis, Ethiopia, and the emerging of the Derg in Ethiopia in 1974, and before that, the presence of the Soviet Union in Somalia, the presence of the American with Haile Selassie at that time, and then the shifting of both countries of both major powers, American going to the Somalis and the Soviet coming to Ethiopia. Despite that, and the Eritrean revolution at that time, it was on its high peaks at that time. They never hindered or never affected the setting agreement, settlement that was, or the setting arrangement of the maritime movement in that region. Despite being a volatile area, this never been an issue. The only time where maritime in that time was affected and was a headline or was a cause of alarm was that in mid 80s, when the southern Yemen at that time positioned some kind of rockets attacker in the Red Sea, and that was only briefly. Then after that was managed to be avoided. In 1985, the Soviet and the American never stopped talking about the Red Sea. And in 1985, they in fact reached an agreement that Ethiopia go back to the American camp, but on the promise that the army will remain in power. The American somehow refused, but they put a condition that the Eritrean situation should be settled either by independence or by restoring the federation systems. That shows you that the American and the Soviet, despite being indifferences, they have not tried to put the Red Sea in the middle of their conflicts. They made sure that this was kept in the best interest of both parties. Now let's go. This is the historical things. Now, when it comes to Iran now and the Houthi movement in the region, the American. Based on that, the American never imagined that any conflict with the Red Sea at that time will bring the area into a standstill and will cause such a big alarm. And that fact that reflects the American move at that time, the decision to leave the area in 2008. They completely abandoned the Red Sea and the region, and they went back after the settling of the Iraqi invasion. That they left the area completely and now they are trying to go back. I think there are two. The American they have always known that Iranians are, and they're aware of the Iranian ambitions in the region. And in general, and their quest to become a regional power. When the Houthi situation came, I think the Americans somehow underestimated the Iranian influence in that region. The American maybe were aware of concentrating more in the Iranian effect on the Lebanese side, on the Israeli side. Then becomes there. The fact that the American abandoning that area was left, the vacuum that was left as a result of the intel, the result of the departure of the region, left their alliance facing this alone, especially the Saudis facing the Houthis. I think now the Iranians are trying to position themselves and to come to the table, being able to compromise on issues of their right to possess nuclear facility, the fact that in terms of that energy, not of course the acquiring the atomic bomb, but the atomic energy itself, and the issue. I think this was the main that gives the Iranian the door, let's say the window to enter that region. Historically, Iranian were trying to keep away from that region. I think the Iranian thought that they could have more cards to play with and more cards to put on the table, and they found that in the form of the Houthis. Somehow the Red Sea now, I think the American they still have one card to play with. The fact that they are the or the in the top of the world at the moment, even in the new movement that is coming with Trump, which is, as we see, creating a new world order after the Second World War. And I think the Americans thought that they still have the upper hand. This is why they were not alarmed by the Iranian being in that region. Conflict here and there, attacks on maritime ships here and there, are not major issues of alarm that can tempt the American or push them to have a military intervention, the same as they did in Afghanistan or the same as they did in Iraq. So what's happening in the Red Sea still can be contained by the American, and in fact, in some cases, can be used by the American. For example, the Saudis' campaign in Yemen was always not supported by the American, and in some cases, it was creating obstacles in front of the Saudis by restricting the targeted areas, making a lot of like issues, and always questioning the Saudis of what areas to target or the end. So the Saudis found themselves in some cases were with a very short hand, not being able to do what they can do, knowing that the Houthis are getting support from Iran here and there. Of course, as we have here, there's an issue here which becomes a taboo. Nobody talks about it because we don't have much information about it, and that is the proximity of the American with the Iranian. To what extent that the American and Iranian talk? To what sort of administration there? What sort of links there? Is there any? Because the first track diplomacy, the official connection, yes, we can see that, but we don't know what is the second track and third track diplomacy works between the Iranian and the American, and how those two nations have managed to avert direct conflict. Although there was attacks on passengers plane, there was a reason where the Iranian has posed real danger to the American interest in the region. But despite that, the Americans have managed to avert that. And that will push us to the point, to the corner of thinking that we don't know everything that's happening. We are not aware of all the diplomatic tracks between the Iranian and the American, that and failing to understand that, we are not able to come up with a complete picture of what is happening in the region and the extent of impact that the Houthis have on the Red Sea maritime, on the Red Sea passage of Bab el-Mandeb. So this always will bring us now to thinking that there's a regional conflict between regional powers, those actors, stakeholders who everybody's trying to play a part. The same as we take us back to the Cold War, where regional powers have always, like, there was a competition between regional powers on who holds or who positions closer to the major powers. The Turkish have secured their membership to NATO, and that was a major. I mean, this is something that other countries were trying to do, but they could not have done it. So the Turkish had so many things to do in order to become that. Maybe their geographical importance as well. So this kind of competition on who is the regional power, that's of course is controlled by, or let's say that the condition to reach that is somehow the ability to to fulfill the conditions or the steps or being able to execute policies that the major powers need and secure their interest in the region. So that will bring us to there. Because of the new world order, which is we are now witnessing, it is entering, it is new chapter. I think we're gonna see the maritime competition reach its highest level. Those countries know that the maritime issues is now one of the major issues. Despite not being we're taking now the oil out of the picture, but we're coming back as well to the trade rule, to trade fight now. The Chinese Silk Road, which is taking different shapes. The Indian ambitions to become a major power in the east coast of Africa, utilizing the Indian or using the Indian presence in that region and the culture and the play and the role the Indian played in changing the dynamic of economy in that region. This all will take us to point that there is a new kind of competition among regions that we have here. The BRICS groups form some kind of also phase of this conflict. So I think we are seeing a shift, but a shift which is trying to everybody is trying to compete either to become a major power in the region or to become an agent to these major powers, and being able to position themselves the proximity between those major powers, the American on one side and the BRICS. The United Arab Emirates now is part of the BRICS. India is part of the BRICS, despite the differences they have with China. So I think that this fact is the main issue there with regard to the Red Sea. Now go to the Ethiopian. I don't know if I have answered this question. I think the question of the border conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea. I think this is what you started, or am I getting all the question right?
No, before we go there, so
Okay.
to what extent is it the Houthi attacks in the maritime corridor in the Red Sea as a tool of negotiation by Tehran?
That's what. Okay, the Iranian, of course. Now, if we see what's happening in Lebanon after the Gaza war and the attack on Hezbollah, and also the abandoning of Bashar al-Assad in Syria to the new actors in Syria who are closer to the Turkish and also closer to the Arab world and to the Sunnis Arab world. So I think Iranians will be allowed to some extent to negotiate, to compromise, or have the Houthis card on the region, since they prevailed through the years, to show that they are able to link those dots in the region that are, despite being minority groups, but were able to form and or become and one of the actor, one of the main influencer in the region. The Houthis is one of them. I think, as I said, the fact that Iranians and American have always other channels where they meet through different tracks of diplomacy. This will tell us that this kind of conflict, although it forms some kind of, it will push it will be the cause of alarming or create some kind of conflict between those countries, but it's still uncontainable. I don't think it has gone out of hand. I think the American and the Iranians will be able to talk about those kind of issues because the quest of the Iranians after abandoning the Hezbollah and the Bashar al-Assad in the let's say the north sphere of the north part of that world. Now we go to the south part of that world. Iran is a closed state. Iran is not open to, is not part in open sea. It can be like cordoned any time. So the Yemen issue, the Houthi issue, is something that the Iranian have the cut, and I think the American understand that the Iranian needs, and that by allowing Iran, or by pushing Iran to the corners, they want to lose a strategic partner in Iran, which is Iran is a big wall that prevents a lot of countries beyond that line, which is in the form of Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, all those Central African, with its Muslim Sunni population and their influence, their roles in their historical role in combating or in supporting the Middle East and the Islamic world in the expansion at one part. Iran is positioned in a very important strategic capacity here. The Gaza war, of course, now we are seeing a war that the reactionaries to what is happening in Gaza is pushing the Houthis to take this kind of military attack, but that does not mean does not represent a strategic choice of the Houthis in my view. If there is a peaceful solution reached in the Gaza's issues, I think we're gonna see the Houthis policy, or the Houthis strategic or ambitions changing. The Houthis they're not in direct conflict with any of. I mean, they don't have any major economical interest in attacking Israel. It's just an attack that is motivated or compelled by the current situation in Gaza, the war, the crime. They have the rhetorics that the Houthis have always based their propaganda on, is that they are being the version of Islam, or the version of the Shiites that is more of protecting to Gaza, and that the Sunnis, while the Sunnis world are failing, the Shiites world is emerging as a big alliance to Palestine, and also to here in Hamas in particular Hamas. So this kind of reactionaries of this kind of attacks based on the ground, on reacting to what is happening on the ground in Gaza, will not be something that the policymakers will fear in the long run. The policymakers know that because of the American movement now, the Trumpies they call it, to create a new world order. They know that regional powers will always try to position themselves in strategic locations, in terms of geographic locations, and also in terms of the alliances with the stakeholders in the region. This allows a room of negotiation. The Iranian, in that respect, in the past have prevailed in reaching a settlement, on reaching a compromising settlement with the American, and that reflects the fact that the Iranian has always kept their nuclear programs alive, and we know that the Iranians, the Israelis' action against any attempt of any countries in the region, the Arab world, of positioning or gaining and putting their step on the nuclear club. We know how the Israelis reacted to that. But when it comes to Iran, it's different. The Iranian program goes back to 1959. So that's still there. This kind of environment, this kind of arrangement between the Iranian and the American administration is still there. So this current situation can change any time if the ground in Gaza changes. And the ground is in Gaza is not only for the Houthis is part of it, but if we look, Egypt is an important cornerstone in that conflict. Anything happens in Egypt will change the whole dynamics of the Sunnis world positioning of the conflict, and we can see that now the post Bashar al-Assad's regime and the Alawite regime in Syria. What I mean, the outcome of that? Where Iran is going to be part of that? Now we see in Iraq as well, what they call it, the popular movement, the Hashd Shabi, they are also facing challenge to reform themselves, being part of them. So there's that. So there is movement in that region. I think once the Iranians are sure of their position or their stake out of that settlement, I think that will impact on the Houthis.
Uh, I guess going to the segue, we're going to go talk about the Russian naval ambitions in the Port Sudan. So Djibouti currently has 8 military bases, and Sudan, Sudan is in a civil war. Then you have another, I guess you can call it a regional power, which is Egypt. Do you think there might be a coalition between the Egyptians, but also all the foreign bases in Djibouti to secure the maritime trade along the Suez Canal? I mean, along the Bab al Mandeb.
Well, I think the Americans are aware of the Russian ambitions to come to the Red Sea, and also know that the Chinese have that ambition to come to the Red Sea. So I think what the American understand that the Egyptians' movement in gaining, becoming the stakeholders, or holding any shares in the import of the Red Sea is still on its early stage. The fact that Egypt have always chose to treat the Red Sea as not being the major importance passage. The fact that the problem in here, I think, is the policy that post monarchy system in Egypt adopted, which is in the form of the Nasser, and subsequently the army that took over after that and is still ruling Egypt at the moment. They have, in order to gain on the political mass supporters of the poor and disadvantaged people, have portrayed the Suez Canal, the digging of the Suez Canal, as being an exposure to the Egyptian peasant, and therefore and something that a tool that was used by the monarchy system, the corrupted monarchy system, as they try to call it, by exposing peasants in order for their own the gaining of the royal families in the Khidewi Ismail form at that time. Adopting that policy, they carried this policy until now. So instead of looking at the bright side or the advantage side of the Suez Canal being a source of hard currency revenue to Egypt, they decided to give that, remain that place, and in the literature, in the mind of the Egyptian, as being an area that is linked to sadness and links to to suffering of the Egyptian peoples, and instead concentrating on being part of the Mediterranean strategical location. The Red Sea, and if you look at Egypt's coastline on between, border of Sudan until the Suez Canal, there's no any major power, there's no any major cities. So the Red Sea somehow was abandoned, the importance of the Red Sea to Egypt. Egypt decided to depended on Eritrea at some point for quite some time now, for being for alliances and also just a partner that is able to stop Ethiopia, or let's say make sure, hindered all the efforts by the Ethiopian and the other Nile states to utilize the usage of their waters and ask for their shares, and all the movements around that, the Antibes agreement and the inquest of changing the colonial arrangement of the Nile water division, dividing, or shares. So the Egypt now going back to that region will take a long time, and I don't think the Russian will find in Egypt a partner that can take them, that can help them gain footstep in that region. The other fact is that Egypt failed to empower the Sudanese. When I said the Sudanese is the power the stakeholders of Sudan, who were in the form of the Arab tribes who were residing in the north of Sudan, controlling the east part, and marginalizing the other groups. So those were in control. But in some there was some ideological differences between the Egyptian and those in power since 1989. And this led to Egypt not having a trusted partner in Sudan. In some cases, Egypt were accused of supporting the secession of South Sudan from northern Sudan, and not being able to help the Sudanese use their coastline to be part of the Egyptian interest. I mean, like this also, of course, because Egypt themselves abandoned their coastline, so that's reflected, and also went all the way to Eritrea. The only port, the only country that has important ports and important stations in the Red Sea is the Saudi Arabia, the other line of the Red Sea. When the Saudis initiated these initiatives of establishing the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden Council, they found that they are the only countries who have important have appreciated the importance of the Red Sea and built infrastructures along the Red Coast, where the other countries have never done anything. So they are saying we are dealing with countries, and we are trying to create a partnership with countries that has long way to understand the value of what they are sitting on. So now, if you go now to Sudan and what Americans are doing. Last year, for example, there was a conference in Mauritania about the security of the west coastline of Africa being strategic importance to America now that they are trying to prevent the Chinese from reaching that coast, because if they reach that coast, that means they will position that they might have military bases just facing the American coastline there on the other side of the Atlantic. When they were asked about the Sudan conflict, the American insisted that it is not an important now. And that also reflected again last month when the conference in Sudan that took place in London. The American have failed to attend. They've shown no interest whatsoever to there, and also they have failed their partners. Countries who depended on the American taking any action were really let down by that. So that shows that the American way of trying to undermine Sudan, the importance of Sudan at the moment, and trying to keep Sudan on this circle, so they can stop the Russian from having any potential partner that they can that is able to execute any deal with. So in this, we can see that the American have chosen a certain way, knowing that the Russian might prevail, might succeed in finding a partner. But despite that being a minor, or a very small chance, or very chance but they cannot risk to leave that unsettled or without dealing with it. So the American the Russian presence in the Red Sea is something that the American will always put in mind, and they will try to do whatever they can in order to stop it. They might not agree on, they might have ideas about the time scale where the Russians are going to be able to come there. When they will be able to do it, but they know that it is something that the Russian have in mind. The American might have now some cards with them in hand in order to delay the Russian effort, create some obstacles in the Russian effort, but nevertheless they cannot risk just leaving it unattended to. So that is one of the things that the Red Sea, the American now going to the bases on Djibouti. Of course, this is American have another policy, and that we might discuss it later.
Right. So in regards to the previous question, you might say the Americans might have a card on them. Is there a possibility that that card might be the UAE and the RSF, and I guess, and the Saudis and the Russians and the Egyptians will be and the Eritreans will be the SAF on that camp? Could that be a possibility? Because at a certain degree, the Sudanese conflict, as much as it is a conflict between two individuals and a paramilitary force and a formally recognized military structure, it is also a regional proxy.
Well, I see the Americans, from my view, I think that I can see the Americans are more close to the RSF and the UAE, more than being close to the Sudan army and its alliance. Now, I mean, the latest gain or the latest victories that the Sudanese army said that they have achieved in Khartoum, which is that, of course, it's still contested, having looking at the current situation in the ground in Sudan. No decisive victories has been achieved, and that can lead to saying that there is a settlement to Sudan, or there is a chance of restoring the government and law and order in Khartoum. I think the American, from my view, they have dual policies in Sudan. One is being more close to everybody, but maybe more lenient to the RSF and the UAE, because the UAE have proved that they have, along the years, have established some kind of expertise in positioning or in becoming being and the proximity or the positioning of themselves to those conflicts are very near perfect to some. I mean, or let's say they have perfected in some cases the ability to infiltrate those kind of groups and be able to execute deals that has allowed them to play part in that. Some people might see that as being very negative one, but I mean, it is too early to judge, because the policies, the UAE are in a race, in my view, to become a regional power, and a regional power in a changing world, in a new world order, will requires for them to act that. Lots of details of those kind of things will be revealed later, as we have witnessed in the past, that the Cold War and actions were taken by countries to become regional powers in the region have entailed to details that whether later were revealed, they were little revealed to people that people could not. I mean, there was no clear at that time. So what we are seeing now might later on prove to us. But I think there are indication. I mean, there are signs to indicate that the United Arab Emirates are aware of the new world order, or the American steps is also an indication that the Americans are holding some cards in their hands, living in conflicts in that area, not intervening directly to that area. In fact, in some cases, hindering efforts of other countries to find a quick solution for this, or support the power that it seems to be more able to secure victory, is showing that the American are still have some cards. They're keeping their cards close to their chest. So the United Arab Emirates are trying to do this. In Sudan's conflict, I think the Americans are seeing a divided Sudan. This divided Sudan will require unstable, of course, a change in Eritrea, and also a change and a settlement in the north part of Ethiopia. Ethiopia has gone a major change since the emergence of Abiy administration. We saw the war between the Ethiopian government and Tigray revealed a very there was opened a new chapter in Ethiopia, which is the old rules of the Abyssinians, the Tigrayans, the Amhara, who were the dominance power of Ethiopia, who have given Ethiopia the narrative of their culture, and also the narrative of their religious, the Orthodox, being the Orthodox, is shifting. we are we are seeing now a new movement in Ethiopia, that the center is not owned by the northern Ethiopians anymore. Is power has shifted to groups that some might call the Kushite movement. That the same applies to Sudan. The stakeholders, the form of the Sudanese, the Arab Muslim Sudanese, who have spent 60 years fighting against each others in some form or other, under the umbrellas of, under the banner of Islam or army movement or socialism, the same has happened in Ethiopia, have also lost the ground. RSF is not only a power, an army power with an ambition to control or tempted by the narrative of being a marginalized group. I don't think so. This is the high, but in details, when we go to details, we can see the emerging of new powers. That is in the form of the Arabs, who have lived long time with the non-Arab group, so they all formed with this
Mr. Hindi,
Kushite
you're
movement.
frozen. You're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're frozen. Your picture, you're not moving. You're literally
Okay.
frozen.
Okay. I don't know. I can see that
Okay.
you don't. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my internet connection is good.
Okay. Except, I guess you're frozen in the picture. Oh, now you're moving. Now it's working perfectly.
I'm okay.
Okay, now it's
So,
stopped, but it's okay. I guess we can continue this way.
okay.
Oh,
Done. Okay. Okay. So the what I see that in what is happening in Sudan here is new chapters. The Hemeti, the RSF group, are presenting a new phase for Sudan, which is, if we look at what happens in Nairobi, we can see an alliance of groups who are not only marginalized by the northern Sudanese or by the dominance power of Sudan, those who are in dominance of Sudan, but also presenting a new ideology, a new face, a new identity for Sudan, or maybe the whole Sudan, but part of Sudan. So, since we are having emerged a new identity of Sudan, a new identity in Ethiopia, a government who's not a future with a very unpredictable future for Eritrea post the Eritrean ACS government. This all pushed them to think that the American will not rule out a major collapse or vacuums, a total chaos at some point in some areas that will allow the area to be shaped again. So this is some of the tools the American will rely on to stop the Russian from or hinder the Russian effort, make it prolong the time, impose a lot of effort to the Russian financial and administration, which the Russian will not be able to bear, having the fact that the Russian administration is not as strong as the American. I mean, like they don't have that, as we know, the capacity, either the financial or the manpower's capacity that they are able to implement or utilize in order to gain grounds and to links, make those arrangements and agreements and reach out to all stakeholders that in order to achieve their goals. They have an agreement now with the Ethiopian government to help the Ethiopian naval service or naval base to naval force. But of course, this is small efforts here and there. We have to bear in mind that most countries, that apart from Saudi Arabia and also to some extent Egypt, those countries, they don't have the financial power to have a naval power. That requires a lot of money. Even if Ethiopian will do it, but it will take a long time. So it is more of a less of political banners in order to create some kind of atmosphere and test the water of the Eritrean, the reactions and the Eritrean unity, which is for them and for so many people, it is fragile. I mean, it is fragile, weakest point ever since the Eritrean armed struggle, or since the Eritrean independence, which started in the 1950s. The independence movement, I think Eritrea is now, and it is weak point to some extent, and I think I agree with that statement. That is, so you can use this kind of political propagandas and send also the political messages in order to test the 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 stand or the ability of the Eritrean to see to that. I mean, and put that and put the Eritrean into a test within their own power groups.
So, in regards to, I guess, before we go to the segue between Eritrea and Ethiopia, there is a possibility that Somaliland, how much there's a possibility that Somaliland actually might be an independent sovereign country, and to a certain degree has been the only democratic country in Horn of Africa, and has been stable and democratic for the last 3 decades, while Somalia has resembled the Afghanistan of the Horn of Africa. So how might Somaliland's recognition shift regional security dynamics in the Horn of Africa, particularly Ethiopia's need for a stable port and UAE's growing strategic investment in the Berbera port?
Well, I think when it comes to Somaliland, I think the American policy, I don't think it will be shaped more by the need of Ethiopia rather than by other strategic importance, which means for the American will not put the recognition of Somaliland as being somehow an assistant in somehow another, regardless the percentage or the how American will how strongly the American will go for that. I think the Americans have one strategic importance for Somaliland, and that comes in the form of the program and the policy that was recommended for the Trump administration, is that the American base in Djibouti are being somehow useless. They are not in any they are not helping the American achieve their strategic position in there, or securing American interest, because of the small area and the proximity of the base to other military base. So Somaliland is a candidate for that. But I think, in my view, for the American to reach that, here comes the regional powers. I think the UAE, mainly the UAE, are able now to reach out to or deals were made with Puntland. So Puntland is part of the region of the 5th region of Somalia. Have expressed ambitions, its leaders, to have some kind of autonomous power in that region. The reason being is that the geographic importance of the Puntland is compared to Mogadishu, to the other regions of Somalia, is like it forms a very important strategic location, and there is economic potential for that. The United Arab Emirates have a lot of investment projects, but in order to achieve that region needs to have some kind of autonomous power out of Mogadishu, something that the Mogadishu are not ready to give. So we have entered a push and pull policy between them. The Somaliland, Somali government, Mogadishu government, I don't know whether it is fear of the Ethiopian intervention or fear of Ethiopia's occupying some land of Somalia's. It have chosen at one stage to have military agreement and security agreement with Egypt and Eritrea. The fact that Eritrea has become part of that dynamic region will mean that the Americans and the UAE with their new alliance, which is Ethiopia and Puntland, they have decided to go to that. So I think the American will be pushed always by the UAE not to do that until there is some kind of settlement between between Somali government and its autonomous regions. Here we're talking about Puntland. Tomorrow we might find Jubaland, a region adjacent to Kenya, and it is the buffer zone, as we know, that the Kenyan established in Somalia. And also it is continuous conflict with the center in Mogadishu over autonomous issues, development issues, and compacting extremism issues. The possibility of recognizing Somaliland is still there, and it is I think it is the highest ever since the Somaliland, this region was created as a de facto state. Now it is on the highest time. I think the American are only it's only going to be a matter of time, unless we see a major change in Somalia, which puts the whole of our Horn of Africa, including part of Ethiopia, including Eritrea, into a new settlement. And I think after that we might see, or even Sudan. So I think in some form of another, we are going to see some kind of autonomous state in Somaliland, whether being an independent, fully independent state, or a state within some kind of confederation or federation arrangements with some kind of, or with the other regions. But it's not going to be done 5 against 1, as it is now. 5 regions of Somalia against the Somaliland. We might find 3 against 2. So the arrangement, the settlement is prone to change at any time, and the conflict, the direction of those conflicts will influence that. Will have their impact on the final outcomes of what we see. So we are seeing a volatile region, a change, and I think there is a lot of changes coming up.
Yeah, Mr. Hindi, there's one thing I do not understand. What leverage does Somalia has? By Somalia, I mean Mogadishu. I mean, it's been a failed state for 3 decades. They can't even control their own borders. Literally, they do not even have the monopoly of violence. They can barely keep the security in Mogadishu, the capital city, barely. So what leverage do they have to say to Somaliland that it cannot be an independent sovereign country? After all, Somaliland has been an independent, some autonomous, democratic, and has been able to secure its borders, unlike the government of Mogadishu. So I just have a hard time understanding, like, what leverage does the Mogadishu government have? Because it seems to me on the grounds they don't have none.
No, they just the only thing is that the Somaliland needed Somalia's permission to become an independent state. The African Union was not going to recognize that. That was happening in Eritrea and in South Sudan. In Eritrea, it says Ethiopia recognized Eritrea, and in South Sudan, Sudan recognized. So the United African Union charter is clear about that. That the Somaliland to become an independent state, Mogadishu has to accept that, has to recognize that state, and the United Nations also not going to accept that. I think what is happening at the moment, there is one fact that's worth mentioning. I think is that the Trump administration has shown strong tendency towards closing all those, funds, public funds, United Nations, the American US aid, and I think this is one way that to see how the future will be shaped. I think that the only leverage Mogadishu has is that international recognition of Somalia as a sovereign state, and its ability to reject Somaliland. That stops Somaliland from having the international recognition. And plus the Western government, the American in particular, have not shown any interest in recognizing the need for Somaliland. I think now, instead of saying it directly, the Americans are telling Mogadishu in another way that if you want to do something, you will have to come up with a new project, with a new state project. The current state project, which extended all the way back to the independence of Somalia, is not working. So I think this is a new message, and I think the American, and this is what I meant when I said a new world order. So the only thing the Somaliland lacks is the belief of the Western government that, and the pressure of the Western government to say to Mogadishu, you have to stop that. But let's look at it from the other side as well. Al-Shabaab in Somalia, an area where was hosted, and I mean the vacuums, or the areas with a vast area with no government control, has allowed the growing of some groups. Those groups have extended their power all the way to Mozambique, as we saw, and the Western strategic interest in Mozambique now is being secured. Mozambique being one of the largest country, the country with the largest natural gas reserve. So I think that some those kind of groups were not being classed as being a danger to everybody. So we have areas here. We have countries who have the interest is injunctions. They're crossing each other's. The American, if they don't want the Mogadishu, but they still have interest with other countries in the coastline of Africa, foreseeing that there's going to be a big competition in Mozambique and also in Madagascar. The area, the Madagascar Canal now holds the largest natural gas reserve. Is greater than the Qataris and the Russian. So this kind of thing, I think that the fact that the American and the West have not yet come an agreement on their views on the proximities of those groups, and the fact that they can see that other areas in some countries needed them, or that some of their alliances still depend on something on Somalia that is somehow in conjunction and crossing roads with this kind of group. So this is what we see. But I think this is now going to change. I don't think we're going to have this just carrying on anymore.
Okay. So before we go to our next subject, which is going to be Ethiopia and Eritrea, I would like to ask you a question. There was at one point Ethiopia was going to recognize Somaliland as an independent sovereign country. At least that was the presumption. Then Abiy Ahmed made a drastic U-turn, and also the government in Mogadishu made a drastic U-turn because they had some sort of a pact between Isaias Afwerki, you have General Sisi, and the Somalian I cannot remember his name right now, but the Somalian head of state. They had a security agreement between the three. Then something happened where the Somalians made a U-turn and they made a pact with Abiy Ahmed. What do you think that might have happened for the Somalians to make a U-turn, such a drastic U-turn?
Well, I think there was two facts. I think the intervention of the Turkish played a very big role in that. The first, I mean, the alliance between Egypt, Eritrea, and Somalia was more of a reactionary move and tactical move rather than a strategic move. The three countries had no clear vision as to what kind of military cooperation they need, what kind of contribution each party is going to make, and what is required from Egypt and Eritrea if they go to Somalia. So the Egyptian, at some point, viewed that as being like maybe a trap for their soldiers and getting used to fight the Somali government war against the Shabab. This is not their war. The Eritrean government were happy to train Somali security and the army, but were not ready to go to war with Somalia. And the understanding of the Somali government was that this agreement includes the internal security of Somalia, so that Somalia is able to withstand any pressure from Ethiopia. And I think the three countries knew that this is not going to work because their understanding, their agreement was not based on strategical understanding among themselves. Egypt have relied to one policy, when it comes to Ethiopia. Is not and also to the Nile states, apart from Sudan, and Sudan also, but in other details, which means, and that's showed on the refusal of Egypt to sign the Entebbe agreement. That means Egypt still are not ready to go into a comprehensive agreement on a strategic partners with the riparian countries, riparian countries, and still insisting on holding the major share. This is why Egypt is ready to sign an independent agreement, like what happened in the agreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea that was signed in 2015, the understanding agreement. So in that, Egypt is happy to entertain any kind of an agreement that will be able to at least create some kind of confusion to Ethiopia, so it can kind of apply some kind of tension to Ethiopia, that Ethiopia's other partners with, other partnership with Ethiopia that in questing to engage in the region will be hindered until Egypt find another policy, and so on and so forth. At the same time, I think one can say that Abiy Ahmed prevailed in pulling those three countries to sign an agreement which is prone to fail. But I mean that's also an assumption, and it might just be the Ethiopian government were also pushed by naively thinking that they could have done that. Somehow, maybe Egypt failed to understand the weight of Turkish in that area, or maybe the Egyptian were needed to go to Turkey first, but something that they wouldn't do in a region that they considered as being the backdoor of Egypt. So here, the intervention of the Turkish, I think, saved the day for Ethiopia, and also allowed Egypt at least to have come to stand in a position of that agreement, or to have some kind of position from the agreement, not being part of a conflict inside Somalia, but at least holding some cards that they can use in the future. And we have seen that now with the new agreement that they signed with Djibouti, a comprehensive strategic agreement. Never mind when that can be executed, all the points, whether they can be fulfilled in the near future, how long do they take that? That's, of course, a long way. But that shows that Egypt have seen that the agreement in Somalia and the could not have turned into that. So the strategic agreement with Djibouti is of more practical, and choosing to go to that path means that Egypt has chosen the long way, the longest strategic partnership with the Djibouti, and that's, of course, left to be seen. What will come out of it. So that we can see that. So I think that the region now, the new players, the Turkish, are able to play part in this kind of in shaping agreement between countries. Qatar played a part of that. So that shows you that the countries in the Horn of Africa, the leaders in the Horn of Africa, are happy to be subject of temporary agreements, allowing them to have short gains that they will implement in their internal conflicts, and not choose the long-term strategic partner with the country. That, of course, that's something that's complicated. I mean, the show reflects the real complexity of those countries, and how their institutional governments are not able to come up with a plan, and also to come up with a strategical interest, clear manifesto of what these countries is, what current situation, and what it doesn't want in the future. Just dealing with current situations, and sign agreements in order to settle situations in a short term policies.
Uh, we're on the last segment of the interview, and this last segment is going to be in relation to the drumbeats of war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So, how do historical grievances dating back to the imperial expansion of Menelik II continue to shape Ethiopia's contemporary claims towards Eritrean territory? That includes Haile Selassie as well. What role does historical memory play in stoking nationalism today? Because contemporarily Ethiopia has hyper nationalism regarding the Assab port, but also Eritrea sovereignty and independence and so forth. But also, and that is coupled with the fact that the, the fact that Abiy Ahmed regime does not have the monopoly of violence in Ethiopia. He does have liberation movements, or you can call them an armed struggle between the Ogaden, the Oromo Liberation Army. You have the Fano, the Amhara, but also you have the TPLF in the north. So therefore, to what extent is it used? Hypernationalism is it used for to pressure or solidify internal security measures, and also to use it as a scapegoat?
Well, if the Ethiopian have never been good in doing such things. In fact, they failed so many times. Internal, external challenges were never being able to turn into a policy that will create a national unity among themselves. In fact, it complicated things. The Eritrean situation now, when we go back to the 60s, the 50s, ignited the Tigrayans issue, because Ethiopia at that time failed to challenge the identity, the group identity of some part of Eritrea, which is the Tigrinya, and the ability of that Tigrinyan ethnic groups to mobilize a society, to create a mass movement, if it is giving a political like a political help and support, which is the same that happened after the fall down of the imperial regime in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia have but what Ethiopia's are, if we see now, there's never been an ethnic or polarization, or let's see, hegemonies in when it comes to the Eritrean policies. The Amhara have viewed the Eritrean independence in different way. The Tigrayans have viewed they've never agreed on the Eritrean the situation on the future of Eritrea and the independence and the sovereignty of Eritrea. While the Tigrayans agree to some kind of sovereignty, the Amhara rejected it categorically. The Oromos was left behind. That all the only thing is they hold with Eritrea is that most of the army that fought in Eritrea were Oromos, led by the politicians of the Tigrayans and Amharans, exchanging powers between them. So rallying Ethiopians behind this cause has not been something that the Ethiopian government was succeeded doing. The thing is that which is giving the Ethiopian government or the Ethiopian public food of thought, or something that they can build their argument with, is that the Eritrean independence was not achieved by power. It was always contested, and it's always a subject of choice, like the referendum, for example. Eritrea held referendum in 1993. That's indicate that the Eritrean sovereignty is based on the desire of the Eritrean to become an independent state from Ethiopia. Here, the process of the referendum itself has been doubted, questioned by a lot of Tigrayan politicians, who at that time described that as being an attempt by the elite that was in control of the TPLF at that time to take out the influence of the EPLF, being a big brother for them at that time, out of any power share in Ethiopia, and giving them their own states. And in order to do that, the TPLF, intellectuals or government officials or veterans of the TPLF have all expressed their disagreement with President Mellas of not considering a lot of issues, not putting restrictions, and not running the referendum in a proper way that to at least secure some kind of interest to Ethiopia. Now we can see from time to time this thing is coming up. So this thing is there's a ground where an argument is based on, or this kind of argument there is a ground on which a discussion can be held. The other thing is here that what the Ethiopian government means for that, or what can they achieve out of all this. I mean, as I said, the Ethiopian government, they see themselves as having the right, or at least they say the right to have an ambition to seek some kind of access to the Red Sea. So the one of the issues that the Ethiopian government can see out of that is this: they can see that a government of unity is established in Eritrea. There is a lot of problem in Eritrea. So this kind of problems can impact and influence the internal choices of Eritrea, and then we come up with other solutions. But I think this is the face, the facade of the problem. But internally, as you said, the internal, the proxy war among the Fanus, the other groups who are fighting, who you mentioned, are the main problem. Now in Ethiopia, we can see that the Ethiopian government is deporting a lot of Eritreans from Ethiopia now. So the Ethiopian government have a lot of issues now that they don't need the Eritrean government being there at this time. Secondly, is that the New World Order as well, the American, the pressure of all countries are having now with all this determination of all US aid, it requires a new change in the region. The Ethiopian, I think, are rushing to put an end to the Isaias regime in Eritrea. I don't know what they think, what kind of arrangement they have after that, who's their chosen partner, who they like to do business with in Eritrea is something that needs a very thorough discussion and a lot of talk. But I think the Ethiopian government, through that, they managed to send messages to the Eritrean government through the African Union, accusing the Eritrean government of hindering efforts and being an obstacles in the peace in the Tigray region. I think that, and also the fact that the Eritrean now are trying to, some of the elements in the Eritrean government trying to do some kind to establish some kind of relationship with some elements in the TPLF or Tigrayans people there. There also is pushing a pressure that another ethnic arrangement, or say agreements based on ethnic sympathies and affiliation among the Tigrayans in that region might create some kind of major obstacles in Ethiopia in changing a regime in Eritrea, whether replaced by a regime more loyal to Ethiopia, or let's create a very weak state in Eritrea, like the Syrian did in Lebanon at some stage.
I guess the only disagreement I have with that analysis is I don't think Ethiopia has a military capacity to go to war with Eritrea at this particular moment. And the reason is Ethiopia is fractured internally. Even Abiy Ahmed, even though he's ethnically Oromo, he doesn't have the legitimacy of the Oromo ethnic group. So therefore, I think there is a facade that Ethiopia is this united state, cohesive, but internally, I think there is much more possibility that Ethiopia might be the next Yugoslavia versus invading Eritrea or starting a war. I think a war is very convenient for both parties. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's convenient for Abiy Ahmed and it's convenient for Isaias. It keeps both of them on their thrones. Both of them are illegitimate. Both of them are dictators. And both of them are accused of egregious crimes, especially what happened in Tigray. Isaias has been in power for the last 3 decades. Well, we'd say 34 now. Abiy Ahmed illegitimately became the prime minister and has been accused of committing genocide in Tigray. So therefore, I mean, don't you think that a war would serve both parties to keep both of them in power?
But of course, I mean, the war in Eritrea and Ethiopia for quite a long time, all the war that took place, I mean, from Haile Selassie's time, during the armed struggle to now, I think is only served some groups. I mean, in some, of course, in the cases where Eritrea were not independent, of course, served the Haile Selassie regime a purpose, and also served the Mengistu regime a purpose. And now I think the conflict inside there, I think maybe the Eritrean government, I mean, will be more, or let's say less ambitious to war in my view. That's my analysis. Is because a new avenue, which is now seeing it might open with the Tigrayans, will need time for the Eritrean government at that time to try to restore historical ties with the Tigrayan that was established during the armed struggle. And at this time, if any war will I mean, with still weak relationship with Tigray, would mean that the Tigrayans will either be not part of the war or help Abiy Ahmed in the war with the government. That fearing that they might cut off from all the services they're getting from the central government. So I think the war, the Eritrean government will be less less ambitious to go to war, because time is what the Eritrean government at the moment need. Since they started this, they decided to try and go to the route of establishing relationship with the Tigrayans. In the case of Ethiopia, yes, I might agree that the war might serve a reason. But as I said, now the past wars were conducted based on some kind of securing some kind of financial arrangements or financial help that was secured and that was provided through different means. But now I think both countries will need the green light from Washington, and I don't think Washington will give a green light to anybody at the moment. So I think the propaganda is what they can rely on at the moment. Any decision to go to war from the Ethiopian side, and I think it will be more devastated to Ethiopian side, in my view, rather than being things, because the Eritrean will need time to restore the relationship with Tigray, but at least will have some kind of slogans that will be able to that they can gain support from Eritrea, because the effort to restore agreement to Tigray, if it is like true, with all the detail that we are having now, despite, I mean, regardless to the speed of how fast this is going, will of course create some kind of hope and an environment of hope among the Eritrean that there is peace coming. So any attempt to pull Eritrea to war now will be seen as a direct hostile movement towards the Eritrean people themselves, and that the Eritrean might rally behind their government.
So, worst case scenario, the Abiy Ahmed's regime becomes reckless and naive, and he pushes towards war. Do you think it's going to involve the role of regional actors? What would the situation in Sudan be? How would Egypt and the UAE and the Saudis be involved in this conflict? Do you think there might be a proxy between the Egyptians and the Saudis backing the Eritreans, and the UAE, maybe the Qatari backing the Ethiopian regime, and Sudan? You can see fractured in two, where Burhan supports Isaias and Hemeti supports Abiy Ahmed.
At present, the Eritrean government is supporting Al-Burhan, the army in Sudan, through different means, through direct involvement in some areas, and through supporting armed groups like the Minawi of Darfur groups and other groups from the eastern part of Sudan. some of them part of the tribe that lives between Eritrea and Sudan, and part Sudanese tribe. That and I think the Eritrean government has chosen their strategic partners in the form of Burhan. United Arab Emirates clearly standing on the side of the RSF, as we've seen. Ethiopia is standing very shy. If we look at the Nairobi's agreement, the summit in Nairobi, Ethiopian were not happy, were not ready to host that. So Kenya was chosen to host that. So the proxy war now, I think, will Ethiopia ability to attract Qatar, for example. Qatar is somehow close to the Burhan because of the Islamic groups that were linked to Qatar for quite a long time. The Saudis and the Egyptian have an interest to stop Ethiopia from achieving any expanding its border, of course. The Saudis will, I think, have always in favor of not giving Ethiopia as an upper hand over Eritrea. That doesn't mean that the Saudis have chosen to weaken Ethiopia to what extent, but at least to have some kind of, for Eritrea to remain a sovereign state with its border intact. And of course, the Saudis have interests with Egypt. But I think for those countries to involve directly, I think it is something I would rule out. I think there's going to be some, fueling the conflict, supporting this side, as they have always done in some way or another. But a direct conflict, I think a lot of some media's outlets have think that a war at Eritrea, Sudan, Egypt, and Saudi against the United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi have disagreed on some in Yemen. They have differences in Yemen. In Sudan also they might have differences, but they are a kind of partner that always look to go the long way, the long diplomatic tension between them, the long diplomatic disagreement. They would rather do that rather than going to conflict. They have fostered a lot of border issues, some important areas issues as well, some intervention in areas where Saudis sees as their strategic partner, some affiliation to a group that the Saudis also sees as a danger to them. This kind of things, they both nations have fostered this kind of conflict, but they have never gone into a direct hostility, and I don't think they will do now. In Sudan was the most difficult, because Saudis, the eastern part of Sudan, Port Sudan especially, all the east part of Sudan is front of the coastline of Saudi Arabia. So any stations or any groups, hostile to Saudis being in that region will be a big chaos to Saudis and be a danger. So the Saudis will choose that, and only if the RSF is not an imminent danger in that, rather than the Burhan being an imminent danger, because the Burhan has managed to put together groups of Islamic militias who now some of them adopt some policies hostile to Saudi, and some are more likely to adopt some kind of policies hostile to Saudi, rather than the RSF being the source of any group that might hold some kind of hostility. So because the ideology is not there with the RSF, is more with the army. The army of Sudan has a long fusion with Saudis in their interpretation of the most Islamic Sunnis, Islamists, and some kind of doctrine which posed danger to Saudi Arabia at some time. This kind of things might be difficult. So I don't think the Saudis will go to direct conflict to support the army, rather than containing the army of Sudan and making sure that those kind of groups will not gonna have it an idea. So in fact, we might see a Saudi Ethiopian cooperation at one stage if the army instead that went to Khartoum has failed to control all these groups, and we saw the emergence of some Iranian group now, which is some are talking about are being seen in Sudan in Khartoum, and also the new stage of the war, which after the RSF managed to acquire high tech drones from China, the army might go again to Iran. So in that very changeable situation, we might see alliances moving on. The only alliance that I see might move, not the United Arab Emirates from the RSF to army. No, I think we might see the Saudis and move, or the Egyptian to some extent moving to the alliance of RSF rather than that. So, and I think the internal the strong stand of the Eritrean government now facing all these challenges also will be an indication to what extent Egypt sees Eritrea and Saudi sees Eritrea as a strong partner. Egypt moved to Djibouti, and in my view, indicates that Egypt is not is having a problem seeing Eritrea as being, or they have a doubt on the strong stand of the Eritrean government at the moment. I think this is for me an indication, together with coupled with other indications, that is pointing out to the fact that the Eritrean government internally are facing some kind of problem.
That is
Sorry, boss.
That is excellent, Mr. Ali Hindi. I would like to thank you on behalf of Nuzul Kahawa Report for coming to the podcast and educating all of us concerning the complexity of the Red Sea.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you.